July 25, 1956, the Italian ocean liner Andrea Doria collided with another ship off the coast of Nantucket, killing around 50 people. However, as many as 16 people have died while diving to the luxury vessel's wreckage since then. In this video, we'll take a look at everything you need to know about the diving disaster of the Andrea Doria Shipwreck. The Andrea Doria, a luxurious 697-foot Italian ocean liner that transported passengers from Genoa to New York, has spent the last 66 years in a watery grave 240 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Doria was a timepiece, with paintings, tapestries, mosaics, and opulent amenities such as many outdoor swimming pools. She also had 11 watertight compartments, a fleet of lifeboats, and radar, which provided passengers with peace of mind. According to Britannica.com, the Doria conducted 100 transatlantic crossings after setting sail in 1953. But disaster occurred on July 25, 1956, when the ship entered high-traffic waters along the east coast, south of Nantucket. The Stockholm, a 524-foot Swedish passenger liner commanded by 3rd Officer Johan Ernst Carstens Johansson, had set sail from New York for its home port of Gothenburg, and when darkness fell, the two ships were heading in opposite directions. Each ship relied on its radar to reach different conclusions. While the Swedish liner chose the traditional port-to-port pass, Doria's captain, Piero Calamai, chose the starboard side. As per History.com, the officers didn't realize they were on a collision course until Calamai glimpsed Stockholm's lights through a thick curtain of fog soon before 11:10 p.m. "She's coming right at us!" exclaimed one Doria cop. Calamai ordered a rapid left turn with little seconds to spare in an attempt to evade Stockholm. Carstens attempted to reverse his propellers and slow down after spotting the Doria. It was already too late. The bow of the icebreaker Stockholm smashed into the starboard side of Andrea Doria like a battering ram, shattering bulkheads and piercing 30 feet into its hull. It was lodged there for a few seconds before breaking free, leaving a large crater in the side of the Doria. As the Doria began to sink, her lifeboats became unavailable, causing fear among its 1,700 passengers. Doria had sunk beneath the waters by the morning of July 26th. During the collision and frantic rescue operation, 46 Doria passengers and 5 Stockholm passengers died. Pierrette Simpson, an Italian-American filmmaker who was on the Doria that fatal night when she was 9 years old, filmed and authored an award-winning film on her terrible experience and the political fallout that followed the disaster. Her literary and cinematic efforts were motivated by the experience, as well as her later discovery that her captain, crew, and Italian shipbuilders had been unfairly blamed for the disaster. Andrea Doria was the first ship to incorporate 3 outdoor swimming pools, one for each class, because it traveled the southern Atlantic routes. When fully booked, the ship could carry 1,241 passengers in 3 classes, 218 in first class, 320 in cabin class, and 703 in tourist class. Each passenger class was strictly divided to certain portions of the ship and was the norm on transatlantic passenger liners. First class lodgings were on the upper decks amidships, cabin class accommodations were close behind first class, and tourist class accommodations were separated between the bow and the aft ends and connected by hallways that stretched the length of the ship. Each class had its own dining room, lounges, and social halls, as well as allotted areas of open deck space and enclosed promenades, as well as its own swimming pools with verandas. Furthermore, 563 crew members were assigned to operate and maintain the ship. Over $1 million was spent on the artwork in cabin and public area furnishings, including a life-size statue of Admiral Doria. Andrea Doria was built with a double hull and 11 watertight compartments. Any 2 of these might be filled with water without jeopardizing the safety of the ship. Andrea Doria was also equipped with enough lifeboats to accommodate all passengers and crew. She carried a total of 16 steel lifeboats of 3 different designs, 8 on each side of the ship, 2 58-person launches for emergency usage, and 2 70-person motorboats with inboard radio transmitters, and 12 146-person hand-propelled standard boats. In addition, the ship was outfitted with the most recent early warning radar. Despite its technological benefits, the ship had significant problems in terms of seaworthiness and safety. When hit by any considerable force, the ship produced a massive list, confirming expectations gained from model testing during the design process. This was especially evident during the Andrea Doria's maiden trip, when she listed 28 degrees after being slammed by a large wave off Nantucket. When the ship's fuel tanks were nearly empty, which was normally near the end of a cruise, the ship's tendency to list was accentuated. After the sinking, the investigation focused on the stability issue, which was a factor in both the capsizing and the crew's inability to drop the portside lifeboats. Water from a flooded watertight compartment could pass over its top into adjacent compartments because the bulkheads of the watertight compartments only extended up to the top of A deck, and a list greater than 20 degrees allowed water from a flooded watertight compartment to pass over its top into adjacent compartments. Furthermore, the design criteria allowed for the lifeboats to be lowered at a maximum of 15 degrees. Up to half of the lifeboats could not be launched if this limit was exceeded. Stockholm's heavily raked icebreaking prow entered Andrea Doria's starboard side about 1/3 of her length from the bow, under the ship's bridge, when the two met at nearly a 90-degree angle. It penetrated the hull and the keel to approximately 40 feet. 5 gasoline tanks aboard the Andrea Doria's starboard side were ripped open and flooded with thousands of tons of seawater. Meanwhile, air became trapped in the 5 empty tanks on the port side, enabling them to float more easily and contribute to the severe list. Because the ship was nearing the conclusion of her cruise, the ship's enormous fuel tanks were nearly empty at the time of the collision, increasing the list. Expert diver Tom Pritchard went missing in 2015 while exploring the Andrea Doria. Recently, another experienced diver from Gateshead, England, was taken unconscious from the ocean on a July trip to the wreckage and ultimately perished. Authorities are looking into whether his death was caused by an equipment fault. According to Steve Biolenda's account, 18 individuals have died on excursions to the Doria, which is renowned as the Mount Everest of diving due to its allure and difficulty. The retired ship captain, who guided trips to the wreck between 1981 and 2001 and has 20 years of diving experience, claims that the Doria itself is not harmful to divers. It's inanimate, he explained. It has no effect on you. The diver, the equipment, what they perform, and their health are all factors. Dan Crowell, who ran a Doria charter from the late 1980s until 2002 and has over 200 dives to the wreck, agreed. It's no more dangerous than any other wreck, he explained. It's just an inert item on the ocean floor. However, every dive, regardless of depth or location, can be hazardous. According to Crowell, the fascination of the Andrea Doria is its treasures, like the ship's china, which divers can find and retain. If they didn't come back with a piece of china, I think they felt like they weren't an experienced or adequate diver, whatever the case may be, he explained. According to Victor Mastone, director and archaeologist of the state's Board of Underwater Archaeological Resources, the Andrea Doria is in international waters, beyond the jurisdiction of the state. He claimed that the shipwreck's owner had not enforced its salvage rights over modest objects removed by divers, such as plates. It's just a pretty regular habit, he explained, adding that the place, while risky, is popular with divers. Aside from the allure of treasures waiting to be discovered, Crowell claims the wreck's status as the Mount Everest of wreck diving feeds everyone's ego. He claimed that L. Giddings, a cinematographer who shot the accident in the 1960s, created the phrase. The moniker stayed. Diving the Andrea Doria is a notch on your belt, Crowell explained. While Crowell and Bialenda agreed that most of what makes the Andrea Doria risky is typical of wreck diving, Bialenda added that there are a few things that heighten the risk with the sunken ocean liner, which is located in approximately 240 feet of water. The wreck becomes dangerous because of its depth and the diver's attitude, he explained. And then there's the reality that you're reliant on machines. The wreck's distant location, roughly 50 miles off the coast of Nantucket and nearly 100 miles from Long Island's Montauk, only adds to the hazards already there. According to Crowell, help is miles away, and the wreck's proximity to the continental shelf can imply greater currents. Bialenda claims a small weather pattern may result in 15-foot waves in 20 minutes. The Andrea Doria is most popular from the middle of June until the end of August, when the weather and water temperature are at their optimum. When diving to a depth of 200 feet, divers typically have 30 to 40 minutes to complete the descent and ascent, according to Bialenda. It goes in the blink of an eye and you can't move very far, he explained. Crowell, who saw 2 people die while diving at the Andrea Doria in 13 months, believes that most diving fatalities are due to medical concerns. He pointed out that because water is 800 times denser than air, each move a diver performs requires 800 times more work. The weight of the essential equipment, the depth of the dive, and the frigid water temperature all contribute to stress on the body. What people don't realize is the amount of physics and physiology that are involved, and that once those parameters are broken, your chances of survival are not very good, Crowell said. In terms of the diver's mentality, Biolenda stated that he turned down more people than he took out to the wreck. He'd conduct phone interviews with possible passengers aboard his ship ahead of time, he claimed, learning not just about their diving ability, equipment, and experience, but also about their psyche. You want to know what kind of person they are, the ex-ship captain explained. You know you're going to have a potential problem when you get someone who starts talking about wanting to recover antiquities. I'm an artifact collector, and I need to acquire a piece of china, says one. All of the china is inside the ship, and diving inside the crumbling wreck adds another element of danger. Divers normally can't see the Andrea Doria until they're about 40 or 50 feet away from it. According to Biolenda, it'd simply appear as this gigantic, menacing shadow. Black shadow, he explained. That's what you'd notice initially. Then, as your eyes adjusted and you moved closer to the ruin, you'd see the distinguishing characteristics of the ship. Because little light penetrates the wreck, which is lying on its side, divers must rely on the lights they bring with them. Divers dive into a hole where first-class passengers formerly boarded, leading to a hallway that spans the width of the ship. The corridor is vertical because the ship lies on its side. Divers must descend the passageway until about 205 feet below the surface, where there is an aperture leading into the ship's main dining area. You have to work your way in, maintaining your buoyancy so you don't touch the bottom or the walls or anything, Biolenda explained. He said that doing so would break the heavy layer of silt and muck within the ship and create clouds of dirt, making visibility impossible. Another danger is becoming entangled in cables and wires dangling through the damaged walls above the rubbish inside. The wreck is crumbling, Biolenda remarked. It's an underwater garbage dump. Then cover that underwater debris pile with sea anemones, mud, and marine flora, so it's like diving into an underwater garbage pail. Crowell, who has witnessed 13 diving fatalities, believes the Andrea Doria's allure will last for decades, since there aren't many wrecks where divers can find an artifact that serves as a trophy of the voyage to the ocean's depths. It's a lot of fun and excitement, Crowell remarked. That's why we do it all. It's one of the few places where you can go and feel like a true Indiana Jones. According to Mastoni, the wreck is falling. It'll be undivable at some point, he said. Crowell stated that while he was leading expeditions, everyone was aware of the hazards and most would agree it was worthwhile. Nonetheless, he adds he hopes to never have to witness another fatality or recover a body again. It's not a pleasant task, he admitted. And with that being said, it's time to end our video. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos like this. We'll see you with another interesting video.